What is American culture? Just think about that question for a minute. It's actually kind of hard to answer, but we're going to try. Hi, folks. I'm Paul, and this is my take. Just the other day, I returned home from a multi-state trip through the American Southeast. This trip covered 5 states, and I spent well over 24 hours in my car. I don't do road trips that often. I'm very tired. But as I drove, I couldn't help but notice how large, beautiful, and biodiverse this country is. I got in the car in one location where I could see my breath in the air, and I got out of the car in another location where it was 40 degrees hotter and humid. Just so humid. Why was it so humid? It's November. Why? The crazy thing is, how many other countries are like that? I mean, yeah, there are others like China and Italy, probably. We're not the only country that has temperature differences. My point is, the United States is amazing because if you wanted to go to the beach and then drive to the mountains and then drive to the prairie and then drive to the desert and then drive to some other mountains and then drive to another beach on a different coast at a different ocean, you could do that. And you don't have to go through any kind of border checkpoint or customs or anything like that. And that, I think, is extremely unique to the United States. The states that make up this country are fascinating. I've been in 31 states and I've lived in 5. 6 if you count a brief stint in California, but I have resided in 5. I've sat on a rocking chair on a back porch with a cup of iced tea. I've commuted to work by train. I've trudged through 4 feet of snow on the way to school. I've had a varied experience of this country. Each state in this union has something unique and interesting to offer, except for Indiana. I'm kidding. Relax. It's a joke. I love Hoosiers. I still don't know why it's called the Hoosier State. I've had it explained to me like 3 times and it doesn't make sense, but that's okay. There are 50 states in the Union, and each one has something special about it. Some special industry, some special history, some special culture or subculture, some special custom or quirk. So with 50 states, each with a definable or semi-definable culture, how do we define the culture of the country that they all comprise? What comes to your mind when you hear American culture? Cheeseburgers, baseball, eagles screeching in mid-flight with the American flag gently flapping in the background. Is that actually American culture? I mean, those are all icons of Americana, but it's not really culture, is it? Culture is defined as a set of behaviors, beliefs, values, or customs that a group of people or a society share. So in a country so vast and diverse, do we still have that? I think it depends on where you look. If you compare cities, which we refer to as cultural hubs, then I would say no, absolutely not. New York and Los Angeles are very different places. They might be both under the same flag, but they do not value the same sorts of things. The cultures of those 2 locations are extremely different from one another, and actually extremely different from pretty much anywhere else in the United States. In fact, most major cities are a culture in and of themselves. Maybe 100 years ago, the values and customs were more similar across state to state, city to city, but not anymore. Atlanta doesn't really have much in common at all with Seattle, aside from maybe voting patterns. That's actually something I want to come back to, voting patterns. Don't let me forget that. But let's look at the country, at the rural parts of the country. Here is where I think real American culture is found. When I think about American culture, I think about the language in our founding documents. I think about freedom. I think about independence, about individuality, a belief in a higher power, in God, a responsibility to do right. And if you've ever lived in a rural area, I think you could probably feel that. Because as I drove through the Southeast, I felt it on almost a spiritual level. And it kind of led me to conclude, I think Southern culture is American culture. The values and beliefs of the American South hold pretty consistent across rural parts of the rest of the country. I don't know if it happened in my lifetime or if I just noticed it as I came of age, but there has kind of been a southernification of rural America. There was a time where it seemed like country music was seen as strictly a southern cultural product, but that's definitely not true today. Country music is huge everywhere, especially in rural areas like the upper Midwest where I grew up. Cowboy boots and big hats were definitely, at one point, strictly a Southern cultural product, but people in Minnesota wear them. People in upstate New York wear them. I see people who have never set foot outside of their northern states behaving like Southerners. And I don't mean talking with a draw or saying, bless your heart. I mean behaving with a sense of independence, a sense of pride in and respect of your country. I see a lot of patriotism in the rural North. And I think Southern culture is seen as a refuge by a lot of rural Northerners who feel like their culture has been lost. And there are a lot of reasons that someone might feel that way, but we can talk about that in a different video. Now, back to voting patterns. I think this gives us a clue into this observation. On this map, I want you to look at the American South. It's the reddest part of the nation. And then the northern rural parts of the country are kind of the same. People's votes are typically informed by the values that they have. People support candidates and policies that they believe will best promote, preserve, and protect the values that they hold most dear. And what you value as an individual, and more importantly, as a society, what your society preserves, promotes, and protects, both tangible and intangible, is your culture. Throughout the decades, American cities have changed a lot. Their culture has shifted in one direction or another. Detroit from the 1950s is unrecognizable compared to the Detroit of today. Denver of the 1980s doesn't look anything like the Denver of today. But the rural parts of the country have managed to stay pretty consistent. Sure, there's been development and advancement, but the values there have persisted since the founding of the country and the first people who settled on the land there. Where these values and customs and beliefs are strongly maintained, that's where I believe you will find true American culture. It's found in the South, and it's found in rural areas everywhere else. And yeah, I know, typically more people are concentrated in these bluer areas than in the red ones, but that doesn't mean American culture is concentrated there. And we can talk about whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's not necessarily the point of this video. I just wanted to talk about the fact that it is a thing. And it's becoming more and more apparent to me as I grow older and learn more and see more of the country. It's kind of funny that this county down here in Alabama and this county way up here in Idaho have unity over most of their values and beliefs. But this blue county here, represented by Portland, Maine, and this blue county here, represented by New Orleans, Louisiana, culturally speaking, don't actually have that much in common, besides the general rejection of the beliefs and values of the red counties. I know that's a broad generalization. There are many nuances, as you would expect to find in a country this large. But I think you see my point. The rural county in Alabama has more in common with the rural county in Idaho than the urban county in Louisiana has with the urban county in Maine. Cities' cultures are informed by the people who live there. In fact, everywhere is. But cities are centers where many different kinds of people with many different backgrounds typically settle. And they tend to often bring their culture, their values, their customs with them. And the customs and values influence the policies of these cities. And the policies change the cultural landscape of those cities. Cities used to be culturally American, but now they're culturally something else. And that's interesting to think about. That's all I've got for now. Thanks for sticking with me. Do you think American culture is synonymous with Southern culture? Feel free to add your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. As always, if you enjoy my content and want to see more, I'd be much obliged if you would drop a like and subscribe to my humble little channel. Hope you're all well, and I will see y'all next time.